The Great Hall of the Galactic Unity Council was built to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds formed inside on humid days. Its walls were carved from the bones of dead moons. Its floors were polished stone from 100 different worlds. And at the center of it all, arranged in a perfect circle, sat the representatives of every species that mattered in the galaxy. Humans sat at the back. Ambassador Taiho Kim stood at the speaker's platform, his hands steady, even though his heart was not. Behind him, in the observation gallery, sat Captain Una Park. She wore her dress uniform, the one covered in medals from battles she wished she could forget. 40,000 humans had died defending the Valari. Homeworld, from the swarm Una, was the only survivor of the final stand at Valari Prime. She had floated in the wreckage for 6 days before rescue came. Now she sat in silence and watched Taiho speak. "Honored members of the council," Taiho said. His voice was calm. He had practiced this speech for weeks. For 300 years, humanity has served this alliance with loyalty and dedication. We have rebuilt dying worlds. We have fed the hungry. We have stood between your children in the darkness. Last month at Valari Prime, 40,000 human soldiers gave their lives to protect a world that was not their own. He paused. The council members shifted in their seats. Some looked bored. Others whispered to their aides. "We come before you today," Taiho continued, "to request what we have earned. Full membership in the Galactic Unity Council. Equal voting rights. A seat at this table, not behind it." The silence that followed was heavy. High Speaker Marath of the Sindari Collective rose from his chair. He was tall and thin, with skin like polished silver and eyes that held no warmth. The Sindari had ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They did not share power easily, Ambassador Kim Morath said. "We thank humanity for its ... enthusiasm. Your species has been most helpful during your probationary period." 300 years, Taiho said quietly. "That is a long probation." Morath smiled. It was not a kind smile. Time moves differently for older species. You must understand the council has standards. Full membership requires a certain ... maturity, a certain history. Humanity is young, eager, but youth is not wisdom. From across the circle, Councillor Thiessen of the Keth Empire spoke. The Keth were massive creatures, built like mountains with eyes. Their empire controlled the richest mining systems in the galaxy. "Let us be honest," Thiessen rumbled. "Humans are useful. They work hard. They die bravely. But usefulness is not greatness. My people were building cities when humans were still living in caves. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, we can discuss this again." Laughter rippled through the council. Soft, polite laughter. The kind that cuts deeper than any insult. Taiho stood very still. In the gallery, Una Park reached into her pocket and pressed a button on a small recording device. She captured every laugh, every smirk, every dismissive wave of a clawed hand. Taiho said. His voice did not shake. "Then I have only one question. When the swarm came for Valari Prime, where were the Sindari fleets? Where were the Keth warriors? Where was the council?" The laughter stopped. "We came," Taiho said. "Humans came. We did not ask for payment. We did not demand treaties. We came because people were dying and we could help. 40,000 of our sons and daughters are buried in Valari soil, and you sit here and tell us we lack maturity?" Morath's silver face hardened. "Ambassador, you forget yourself. Humanity serves at the pleasure of this council. Your ships patrol our borders because we allow it. Your merchants trade in our ports because we permit it. Do not mistake tolerance for equality." "I understand completely," Taiho said. He gathered his notes. He straightened his jacket. And then he did something no human ambassador had ever done before. He walked out. The council chamber erupted in whispers. This was not protocol. Representatives did not simply leave. They waited to be dismissed. They bowed. They thanked the High Speaker for his time. Taiho walked past the guards. through the great doors, and into the corridor beyond. His aide, Lieutenant Hannah Choi, fell into step beside him. "Sir," she whispered, "what just happened? What do we do now?" Behind them, Una Park emerged from the gallery. Her face was blank, but her eyes were burning. Taiho stopped at a window that looked out over the Council's capital city. Ships from 100 worlds filled the sky. Towers built by ancient hands stretched toward the stars. It was beautiful. It was powerful. And it had never, not once in 300 years, seen humans as anything more than servants with smiles. "What do we do now?" Taiho repeated. He was quiet for a long moment. "We do what humans have always done, Hannah. We remember. And then we go home." Una joined them at the window. She had not spoken since the battle. The doctor said she might never speak again. But now she leaned close to Taiho and whispered for words. "Make them regret it." "Right?" Taiho nodded slowly. "They think we need them. They think we'll come back with our heads down, begging for scraps. They think we have nowhere else to go." He turned away from the window. "They're wrong." 3 days later, the human delegation left the council capital. Their departure was quiet. No protests. No angry speeches. Just packed bags and polite goodbyes. The council barely noticed. Counselor Rithus of the Velarii watched the human ships rise into the sky. He had tried to thank the humans for saving his world. He had tried to speak in favor of their petition, but his voice was small, and the council did not listen to small voices. "They will return," Morith said, standing beside him. "They always do. Humans are like children. They throw tantrums, but they cannot survive without adults to guide them." Rithus said nothing. He watched until the last human ship vanished into the darkness between stars. He had a terrible feeling that Morith was wrong. He had a terrible feeling that the galaxy had just made a mistake it could not take back. But nobody asked Rithus what he thought. Nobody ever did. 6 months passed. The galaxy continued to spin. The council continued to meet, and humanity began to disappear. It happened so slowly that no one noticed at first. A human engineer would finish her contract on a Cinderai space station, pack her tools, and board a transport home. Her employer would post a job listing. No humans would apply. Strange, they would think, but not alarming. A human doctor would treat his last patient on a Keth mining colony, hand over his medical records, and catch the next ship to Earth. The hospital would search for a replacement. None would come. Concerning, they would admit, but surely temporary. A human teacher would hold her final class on a Valari agricultural world, hug her students goodbye, and walk onto a waiting shuttle. The children would ask when she was coming back. She would smile and say nothing. One by one, piece by piece, humans left. Admiral Doyon Lee stood on the bridge of the HSS Silent Dawn and watched his screens fill with data. Every human ship, every human station, every human outpost, all of them were moving in the same direction. "Home. Status report," he said. His communications officer, a young woman named Seo Yoon Jang, checked her console. 92% of civilian personnel have been recalled from council space. Military withdrawal is at 78%. All trade agreements have been fulfilled to the letter. No contracts broken. No debts unpaid. "Good," Doyon said. "We leave nothing behind. We give them no excuse." On the frontier world of Kasisavin, Dr. Mingy Beek was packing the last of her medical equipment. Her hospital was small, just 30 beds, but it served 3 entire star systems. The nearest non-human medical facility was 2 weeks away by fast ship. A young Valari official named Ithrin stood in her doorway. His scales were pale with worry. His eyes were wet with something that might have been tears. "Please," he said, "you cannot leave. The children, the elderly, the sick, who will care for them?" Mingy sealed another crate. Her hands were steady, but her heart was heavy. She had worked on Casa 7 for 20 years. She had delivered babies. She had held hands of the dying. She had taught local volunteers how to treat common illnesses, how to set broken bones, how to save lives. "I trained your people well," she said. "They can manage." "But they are not you," Ithrin said. "They do not have your knowledge, your equipment, your medicine." Minji stopped packing. She turned to face the young Valari. He was barely an adult by his species standards. He had his whole life ahead of him, and he was looking at her like she was abandoning him. Maybe she was. "Do you know why I came here, Ithrin?" she asked. He shook his head. "Because your people needed help. That's it. That's the only reason. Humans saw suffering, and we came. We didn't ask for payment. We didn't demand respect. We just... came." She picked up another crate. "We asked for one thing. Just one. A seat at the table. A voice in the decisions that affect us all. And your council said no." "I would have said yes," Ithrin whispered. "I know," Minji said. "But you don't sit on the council. And the ones who do made their choice. Now we're making ours." She walked past him, carrying her crate to the waiting shuttle. The sun was setting over Kasisavin. The sky was purple and gold. It was beautiful. She would miss it. "Will you ever come back?" Ithrin called after her. Minji stopped at the shuttle door. She looked back at the young Valari, at the hospital she had built with her own hands, the world she had loved for 2 decades. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Ask your council." The shuttle lifted off. Ithron watched until it became a dot of light among the stars. Then he walked back to the empty hospital and sat in the waiting room and tried not to cry. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out 1,000 times. 1,000,000 times. Human hands letting go. Human voices saying goodbye. Human ships rising into the darkness and not looking back. On Earth, Chancellor Sunwoo, he stood before a camera and recorded a message. It would be broadcast on every frequency, in every language, to every corner of Council space. "To the Galactic Unity Council," he said. His voice was calm and clear. "The humans of Earth thank you for 3 centuries of education. We have learned much from our time among you. We have learned how the galaxy sees us. We have learned what we are worth in your eyes. And we have learned that our worth does not depend on your recognition." He paused. Took a breath. "Effective immediately. All human borders are closed. Our ships will not enter Council space. Your ships will not enter ours. Trade agreements will not be renewed. Diplomatic relations are suspended. This is not an act of war. This is simply ... goodbye." Another pause. A longer one. "Do not contact us. We will not respond. Live well. We wish you no harm." But we are done. As the message ended. In the council chamber, High Speaker Morath watched the recording with a smile on his silver face. Around him, other council members laughed and shook their heads. "Children," Thiessen rumbled. "Throwing a tantrum because they didn't get what they wanted. They'll be back within a year," another counselor predicted. "Their economy can't survive without access to our markets." 6 months, Morth said. "I give them 6 months before they come crawling back, begging for forgiveness. And when they do, we'll make them wait. We'll make them understand their place." Counselor Rethus of the Valari did not laugh. He sat in his chair and remembered the human soldiers who had died for his world. He remembered their faces, their names, their families back on Earth who would never see them again. "And if they don't come back?" he asked quietly. Morath's smile widened. "Then we'll barely notice they're gone." The council adjourned. The members returned to their worlds, and the galaxy continued to spin, confident that nothing had really changed. But in the empty space where human ships used to fly, the silence was growing, and somewhere in that silence, something was waiting. 5 years passed. The galaxy learned what silence sounded like. It started with small things. A water purifier broke down on a Sindari colony world. The local technicians tried to fix it, but the design was human. The parts were human. The instruction manual was written in a human language that no one had bothered to learn. They sent a request for technical assistance to the nearest human outpost. The outpost was empty. Had been empty for years. The colony waited 3 weeks for clean water. 47 people died of preventable disease. On Keth Prime, the great atmosphere processors began to fail. These massive machines had been gifts from humanity. Installed 2 centuries ago, when the Keth Industrial Revolution had poisoned their air, human engineers had maintained them ever since. Human parts had kept them running. Now the parts were gone. The engineers were gone. And the Keth were learning, slowly and painfully, that they had no idea how the machines worked. Trade Minister Thiessen sent formal requests for technical documentation. He sent them to Earth. He sent them to every human colony he could find on old star charts. He sent them to the Council archives, hoping someone had made copies. No one had. How is this possible? Thiessen demanded in the council chamber. His massive body was trembling with rage. 300 years of partnership, and we have no records, no blueprints, no understanding of their technology? High Speaker Morth's silver face was no longer smiling. The humans were generous with their knowledge. They shared freely. We saw no need to document what they gave us, because we assumed they would always be here to explain it, Counselor Rethus said quietly. No one responded. The truth was too bitter to acknowledge. In the outer territories, piracy was becoming an epidemic. Human patrol ships had once kept the trade routes safe. Human marines had once boarded smuggler vessels and freed their captives. Human presence had once made criminals think twice. Now the criminals didn't think at all. They took what they wanted. They killed who they pleased. And when the victims called for help, no one came. The swarm was moving again. Intelligence reports showed them massing on the edge of council space. Their hive fleets were rebuilding. Their warrior caste was breeding. They remembered their defeat at Valari Prime. They remembered that humans had broken their advance. They also remembered that humans were gone. Counselor. Rethus spent many sleepless nights studying old battle reports. The victory at Valari Prime had not been won by superior numbers or advanced weapons. It had been won by human tactics, human courage, human willingness to die so that others might live. We have the ships, Rethus said at an emergency council meeting. We have the soldiers. Why can we not form a united defense? Because no one trusts anyone else to lead, Morth admitted. His voice was tired, old. When the humans led our fleets, we followed. They had no empire to expand, no territory to claim. They wanted nothing from us except cooperation. We gave them nothing, Thiessen said. Not even respect. The words hung in the air like a curse. On Cassisivan, the hospital that Minji Beak had built was still standing. Local doctors did their best with the training she had left behind. But medicine ran out. Equipment failed. And diseases that humans had cured with simple treatments became death sentences once again. Ithrin, no longer young, visited the hospital often. He was a senior diplomat now, responsible for relations with species that no longer talked to them. He spent his free hours teaching children from old recordings. One recording showed Dr. Minji teaching Valari children to sing human songs. The children in the video laughed and clapped. Minji smiled like the sun coming out from behind clouds. Ithrin's grandchildren watched with wide eyes. Will we ever meet humans? His granddaughter asked. I don't know, Fryn said. I hope so. What were they like? Ithron thought for a long time. He remembered Minji's gentle hands, her patient voice, the way she had cried when a child she couldn't save had died in her arms, even though she had saved 100 others. They were kind, he said finally. They helped because they wanted to help. Not because they had to. Not because they got something from it. Just because they saw pain and wanted to make it stop. That sounds nice, his granddaughter said. It was Ithrin agreed. It was very nice. In his private chambers, High Speaker Morath received reports from across the galaxy. Failing infrastructure. Rising crime. Growing unrest. The swarm. Famine on worlds that had once been fed by human agriculture. Disease on worlds that had once been healed by human medicine. He was old now. His silver skin was dull and spotted. His hands shook when he reached for his tea. He had led the council for 40 years. and in that time he had made one decision that mattered. He had told the humans they were not good enough. "We didn't lose servants," he said to his empty room. His voice was barely a whisper. "We lost the only people in the galaxy who actually cared about us. Not because we were powerful, not because we were useful, just because we existed." He looked at a star chart on his wall. Somewhere beyond the red line that marked the human border, Earth was spinning. Human children were learning. Human scientists were discovering. Human artists were creating, and none of it was for the Council anymore. "What have we done?" Morith asked. The stars did not answer. The silence was all that remained. The hollow came from nowhere. Or perhaps it came from everywhere. The scientists who tried to study it could not agree. It appeared first in the galactic core, a darkness that swallowed light. Stars that had burned for billions of years flickered and died in its presence. Planets that had supported life for millennia froze solid in hours. And when the Council's warships approached to investigate, they simply ... stopped. No explosions. No battles. No distress calls. The ships just went dark and drifted into the void. Their crews frozen at their posts, their reactors cold, their weapons unfrayed. 17 star systems fell in the first month. The Council convened an emergency session. For the first time in living memory, every seat was filled. Even species that hated each other sat side by side, united by terror. "We have deployed 300 warships," Admiral Korath of the Sindari reported. His voice was shaking. "None have returned. We have fired our most powerful weapons. They pass through the hollow like light through glass. We have sent probes. They send back no data. We have tried communication. There is no response. Then what do we do?" Thiessen demanded. The Keth counselor looked smaller than he had 5 years ago. His mining worlds were directly in the hollow's path. "Pray," Korath said. "Because nothing else is working." Counselor Rethus stood. His scales were gray now, his movement slow, but his voice was clear. "There is one option we have not tried." "If you are about to suggest we contact the humans," Morith began. "I am," Rethus said. "They left because we insulted them. They left because we treated them like servants. But they never attacked us. They never threatened us. They simply walked away. Perhaps if we approach them with humility..." Morith's laugh was bitter. "You want the Galactic Council to beg?" "I want the Galactic Council to survive," Rethus said. "Right now, those are the same thing." The vote was close. But fear won over pride. A message was sent to the human border. There was no response beyond the sealed border. Commander Jinho Seo stood in a darkened observation room and watched the hollow consume another star. Human sensor stations had been tracking the entity since its first appearance. Human scientists had been studying its patterns. Human engineers had been building something in response. "The Council is calling," his aide reported. "I know," Ginho said. "Should we respond?" Ginho was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his parents who had served on Council worlds for 30 years. He thought about his sister, who had died defending Valari. Prime, he thought about all the humans who had given everything to species that gave nothing back. "No," he said. "Not yet." In a laboratory on Luna, Dr. Yoon-Jihan worked without sleep. Her team had spent 3 years developing a theoretical weapon against the Hollow. It was based on human physics, human mathematics, human understanding of the universe. The Council's scientists had never thought to explore these paths. They had been too busy looking down on humanity to look at what humanity had learned. The weapon was ready. But there was a problem. Requires a delivery system, UNG explained to the Human Defense Council. Someone has to fly directly into the Hollow's core and detonate the device from inside. "A suicide mission," Admiral Do-Yan Lee said. Yes. The room was silent. The council members looked at each other. They all knew what this meant. "They never helped us," Doyen said slowly. "For 300 years we gave them everything. Our knowledge, our technology, our lives. And they gave us insults in return." "Yes, Chancellor Sunwoo," you agreed. "They did. So why should we save them?" Yeonji set down her notes. She was tired. So tired. But she had been thinking about this question for 3 years. Because that's not why we help, she said. We didn't help them for gratitude. We didn't help them for rewards. We helped because people were suffering and we could make it stop. That's who we are. That's who we've always been. She looked around the room. If we let trillions die because our feelings are hurt, then we're not humans anymore. We're just another species that learned to hate. Sun Wu closed his eyes. He thought about his children, his grandchildren, the world he was leaving them. He thought about what kind of legacy humanity would have if they watched the galaxy burn and did nothing. Prepare the mission, he said. The HSS Silent Dawn broke seal 3 days later. It led a fleet of 7 ships, all crewed by volunteers. Every person on board knew they would not return. At the helm sat Captain Una Park. She was 63 years old now. Her hair was gray. Her hands were spotted with age. But her eyes were the same as they had been at Valerie Prime. Sharp, clear, unafraid. Course plotted, her navigator reported. We'll reach the hollow in 6 days. Good, Una said. Send no messages to the council. If we succeed, they'll know. If we fail, let them wonder. She looked at her crew, humans from every colony. Scientists and soldiers, young and old. All of them had volunteered knowing they would die. I'm not going to give you a speech, she said. You all know why we're here. You all know what we're doing. I just want to say, I'm proud to serve with you. I'm proud to die with you. And I'm proud to be human. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed. Behind them, the galaxy held its breath. And somewhere in the darkness ahead, the hollow was waiting. The hollow died screaming. No one in the galaxy could hear it. The frequency was too high, too alien, too far outside the range of mortal senses. But sensors across 1,000 worlds recorded the moment when the darkness stopped spreading. When the cold retreated, when the stars that had been swallowed flickered back to life, the 7 human ships were gone. There was no wreckage, no debris, no bodies to recover. The weapon had worked exactly as Dr. Jung-Ji Han had designed it. The explosion had destroyed the hollow from the inside, collapsing its dimensional form, sealing the wound in reality that had allowed it to exist, and it had destroyed everything within 10,000 kilometers of the detonation point. Captain Una Park's final transmission was recovered 3 weeks later. A research vessel from Valari found it drifting in the void, stored in a hardened data capsule that had been ejected moments before the explosion. The recording showed Una on her bridge. Around her, alarms were blaring. Her crew was making final preparations. The hollow filled every screen, a wall of absolute darkness that seemed to go on forever. Una looked into the camera. She did not smile. She did not cry. She simply spoke. This is Captain Una Park of the HSS Silent Dawn. To anyone who finds this message, the mission was successful. The hollow is destroyed. The galaxy is safe. She paused, took a breath. It's the Galactic Unity Council. This is what you threw away. Remember it? The recording ended. High Speaker Morath watched the message in his private chambers. He watched it 47 times. On the 48th viewing, he began to cry. The council convened for what felt like the 100th emergency session. But this time, there was no fear in the chamber. Only shame. We must honor them, Councillor Retha said. His voice was hoarse with grief. We must build monuments. We must name stars after their fallen. We must ask them to come back, Thiessen interrupted. The Keth counselor looked broken. His mining worlds had been directly in the hollow's path. Without the humans, his entire civilization would have been erased. Full membership. Reparations. Anything they want. Everything they deserve. The vote was unanimous. The message was composed with unprecedented care. Every word was chosen to convey respect, gratitude, humility. It was translated into every human language. It was broadcast on every frequency. The response came 3 days later, Chancellor. Nari Song appeared on every screen in council space. She was young for a human leader. Her father, Taiho Kim, had died 2 years after the withdrawal. He had lived just long enough to see humanity thrive without the council's approval. Members of the Galactic Unity Council, Nari said. Her voice was calm, clear, familiar. "We have received your message. We appreciate the gesture." Truly, she paused. "However, humanity is not interested in rejoining the Galactic Unity Council. We have learned over these past 8 years that our worth is not determined by your recognition. We have built, we have grown. We have become more than we ever were under your shadow." Another pause. "Longer this time. The universe does not owe us kindness for our sacrifices. But neither do we owe you our presence. We saved your galaxy because it was the right thing to do. Not because we expected reward. Not because we forgave you. Simply because we are human, and this is what humans do." She straightened her shoulders. "Live well. Grow wise. Perhaps in another 3 centuries, your grandchildren will be worthy of standing beside ours. Until then, ... goodbye." The transmission ended. The council chamber was silent. Rethus buried his face in his hands. Thesan stared at the empty screen as if waiting for it to change. Morith sat motionless in his chair, looking older than the stars themselves. "What do we do now?" Someone asked. No one had an answer. On the edge of human space, a small medical station opened 6 months later. It was staffed by volunteers. It asked nothing in return. It treated anyone who came, regardless of species, regardless of history, regardless of politics. Dr. Mingy Beek, 91 years old and still refusing to retire, greeted the first Velar refugees with a tired smile. They had traveled for weeks. Their ship had barely made it across the border. They were sick and scared and desperate. "We didn't know if you would help us," the lead refugee said. "After everything that happened, after the way we treated you." Minji led them toward the treatment center. Her young assistant, intern Jawan Lim, walked beside her with a tablet full of medical files. "We're not doing this for the council," Mingy said. "We're not doing this for politics. We're doing this because you're in pain, and we can help. That's all. That's enough." The refugee stared at her. "I don't understand you. I don't understand any of you. You sacrifice everything and ask for nothing." Mingy stopped walking. She looked at the Valari with ancient eyes that had seen too much death and too much life and too much everything in between. "Let me tell you something," she said. 300 years ago, we thought the universe would love us if we were good enough. If we helped enough, if we sacrificed enough, we were wrong. The universe doesn't love anyone. The universe doesn't care." She smiled. It was a sad smile, but a real one. "So we decided to care instead. Not because we're special, not because we're better, just because someone has to, and we chose to be that someone." She resumed walking. The refugees followed. "That's who we are," Minji said. "That's who we've always been, and that's who we'll always be. No matter how many times you throw us away, somewhere across the galaxy, the Sindari were learning to grow their own food. The Keth were rebuilding their atmosphere processors from recovered blueprints. The Valari children were learning human songs from ancient recordings, and on the human border, the gates remained closed. But the medical station stayed open. The lights stayed on, and every day, more refugees arrived to find helping hands and gentle voices waiting for them. They would wait a very long time for the gates to fully open, but humans were patient, and humans remembered. And humans, no matter what, never stopped being human.